Good morning, Mid-Manhattan Adult Learning Center. Whether you are watching from home or here in the building, this is orientation for brand new students. And if you're here, well, not only for brand new students, but students who have not yet participated in a orientation just yet. So if you're here, it's either because you're brand new and you have not participated in a podcast, or maybe you are a student who has been with us for some time and has never participated in an orientation. So, if that is you, then you are in the right place. This is the Mid-Manhattan Adult Learning Center orientation. I am Carlos Rosas, one of the case managers here, and I am coming to you live from Mid-Manhattan Adult Learning Center. We are back in the building. Students do have the option to be remote or to appear live. And we have some information for you today that will be helpful, regardless of what your setup is. Just do us a favor, if you are live in the building, Mr. Del Rosario should be coming around the cafeteria with a clipboard so that you can sign your name, you can get your attendance. If you are watching us from home, what you can do is you can type your name and your teacher's name in the chat box so that we can account for your attendance. Sorry? Okay. Alrighty. 1 minute, please. For those of you watching at home, you would have to check with the principal. See if you have. Okay. Sorry about that. Some technical difficulties. But we are going to go ahead and continue. Okay, you got to check with the principal because she probably has the remote. I don't have the remote. You whatever you have done. Okay. Wait for me, okay? You got it. Okay. So once again, if you're watching, please make sure that you type your name and your teacher's name in the chat section so that we can account for your attendance. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started with some information. And hopefully this will be helpful. Alrighty. Let's take a look here. Okay. So once again, welcome to Mid-Manhattan Adult Learning Center. We are committed to passion, patience, perseverance, persistence, possibility. We are the only office in the New York City Department of Education that caters to students ages 21 and over. We are New York City Public Schools. Therefore, whatever is happening to New York City Public Schools, if you have children in the public school system, also affects us. So for instance, New York City Public Schools has a snow day, we have a snow day. All right. New York City public schools are affected by COVID and there are restrictions. The same restrictions apply to us. Okay? When in doubt, you can always consult with news radio, maybe 1010 WINS 880 on the AM dial, and any updates that are given to New York City public schools will also apply to us. We are located at 212 West 120th Street in Central Harlem. If you need to reach us, the phone number is 212-666-1919. Main office extension is 0. Okay, there was really nothing that was missed earlier. Okay, so we are located in Central Harlem, and we are accessible by mass transit. We are close to the A train, the C train, the B train, the D train, the 2 and the 3. If you're coming from the 1 or from the 6 train, it's a little bit of a walk, but we are accessible by those trains as well. Okay, to participate in our program, you must be at least 21 years of age and reside in one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. Very important. Our basic education classes for task preparation, formerly known as GED, is one of our most popular classes. We also offer English as a second language. We do offer CTE classes. Many of those classes have been suspended until further notice due to COVID restrictions, but there are still some available, such as Microsoft Office and Certified Nurses Assistant. Our schedules run the gamut. Once COVID restrictions are over, you may find that we'll be offering classes at different times, but by and large, students can opt to take classes Monday through Friday between the hours of 8:30 and 2:30. Some students are not available for the entire school day, so they can take half-day class. Some students may opt for a 9 to 12 p.m. class. Others may opt for a 12:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. class. We also offer some classes in the evenings, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 5:40 p.m. to 9 p.m. Our Saturday classes meet from 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Let's talk a little bit about school registration. In order to register for a class, you probably filled out a form that looks something like this. If you have not filled out this form, you should probably let your instructor know just so that you're accounted for. Chances are, if you are participating in a class, you have filled out this form. Okay, for those of you who are working remote, you know that your D79 email and your Google Classroom are a very big part of what we do. For those of you who are participating in classes here in the school live, this information still applies to you, although it may not be as prevalent as it is for students who are participating remotely. So we're going to watch this video, which will break down to you how to activate your D79 email and your Google Classroom.
If you are watching this video, you have probably been accepted into a class at Mid-Manhattan Adult Learning Center for the fall 2020 semester. Please watch this video for some instructions on how to navigate your class. Please note that these instructions are for students who are using a desktop computer, a laptop computer, or a tablet. Though instructions specific to cell phones begin at the 7-minute mark, I would encourage students to view this video in its entirety as it contains information that is useful for students regardless of which device they are using. You've received an email that looks like this. This email will tell you your class schedule along with your teacher's name. Highlighted in yellow, you're going to see an email address for what's called your D79 account. Please note that your teacher is going to be communicating with you through your D79 account. So I'm going to explain to you how to set up that account. The first thing you need to do is go to google.com on your browser. When you get to Google, you may notice in the upper right-hand corner a blue box with the words "Sign In." Please click on that box if you see it in the upper right-hand side of your screen. You may already have a Gmail account. If you do, you may notice that in the upper right-hand corner, instead of seeing a blue button with the words "Sign In," there will be a colored circle with a letter in the middle. If you see this in the upper right-hand corner, please click on the colored circle. Once you click on the colored circle, a drop-down menu should appear. One of the options on this drop-down menu should be the option to add another account. Please click on this option. Whether you've clicked on the blue Sign In button or on the colored circle in the upper right-hand side of the screen, you should now see a log in screen. You will be asked to log in with your username. Your username is highlighted in yellow in the first email that was sent to you by Mid-Manhattan Adult Learning Center. It would probably be made up of your first name, a dot, your last name, at d-79.com. This is just like logging into any other Gmail address account. Next, the computer will ask you to enter your password. If this is your first time logging in to your D79 account, your default password will be Google123. Please make sure that the first G in Google is capitalized and that there are no spaces between any of the characters. Then click Next. On this screen, you will be asked to accept the terms and conditions of these services provided by Google. You must accept these terms if you are going to participate in a class. Please be rest assured that your privacy and your information is safe and will not be shared with a third party. Next, you will be prompted to create a brand new password, one that only you know. The staff and teachers of Mid-Manhattan Adult Learning Center will not have access to this password at all. So please be advised to use a password that you will remember easily and one that you will have accessible at all times. Now, you should be able to access your D79 email. Please remember that this email is not to be confused with your personal Gmail account. Anytime your teacher corresponds with you, they will be contacting you via your D79 email. So it is very important that when you log in, you make sure that you are logged in on your D79 account. You want to be on the lookout for an email that's titled Class Invitation. When you see this email, please click on it. When you open your class invitation, you should see your teacher's name and a blue button with the word Join. Please click on the blue button that says Join and you will be directed to your Google Classroom. In the next part of this video, I will explain to you how to navigate your Google Classroom. This is what your Google Classroom will look like. It's very important that you report to your Google Classroom on the appointed day and times that your classes meet. When you arrive to your Google Class, make sure that you click on the Meet link. This is where the teachers will meet with the students virtually. After your first day of class, you may find that the easiest way to access your Google Classroom is to go to google.com directly, then in the upper right-hand corner, click on the 9 dots known as the waffle. That will give you a drop-down menu. When you see the drop-down menu, you can scroll down and select the Google Classroom. That will give you a more direct link to your teacher's classroom. Don't forget that you must be logged into your D79 account anytime that you are ready to go into the classroom. Without logging into the D79 account, you will not have access to your Google Classroom. This next section of the video is for those students who are accessing their D79 account and Google Classroom by their cell phone, be it an iPhone or a Samsung. The very first step you want to make is to find the Gmail icon on your smartphone. It's a standard icon that comes with most iPhones and Samsungs alike. You can click on that. If you do not have a Gmail account, this should be a fairly simple procedure for you. All you have to do is log in with the D79 username and password. If you already have a Gmail account that is linked to your
We're back, and let's continue with the presentation. Let's see here. Okay, so one thing that we have to make very clear, just a reminder, if you have a personal Gmail account, make sure that you sign out of it completely when you are trying to get into your D79 email address or your Google Classroom. Because if you do not, then your device will default to your personal and you won't be able to access these accounts. Very important. Okay, let's talk a little bit about tasks for those of you who are here for the purposes of getting your high school equivalency. So there are different ways of attaining your task diploma, and I want to talk a little bit about those. So the task itself is 5 subject areas. You have reading, writing, science, math, and social studies. Some of you may have college credits if you were in a program such as ACA, where you were going for your high school equivalency and your college, your associate's degree at the same time. Some of you may have accumulated college credits. Um, if you have college credits, 24 at the very least, it is very possible to apply for your TAS diploma. Some of you may have taken the GED, the old exam, and you took it anytime between 2003 and 2013. You can use up to 4 passing GED test scores in combination with at least 1 TAS exam score. So, what does that mean? If you took the GED section, if you took the math section of the old GED or the history section of the old GED and you passed them, these are parts of the exam you do not need to retake on TAS. In addition to that, some of you may have taken Regents exams when you were in high school in the core subject areas. So if you took a math Regents and passed it, or English, or science, or social studies, any of the core areas, if you pass those sections, if you pass those exams with a score of 65 or higher, you get credit and would therefore not have to take that section of the task. Now, just remember, we're talking about Regents exams. We are not talking about any other exams such as the RCT. If you took the RCT, unfortunately, those test scores do not apply to the task. Our assessment coordinator for TASK, our TASK guru, is Miss Mustafa. And when she is in the building, you can find her in room 300. But I believe she's working remotely. So if you need to reach her, you can email her at rmustafa@schools.nyc.gov. Her email address is at the bottom of the screen. You can feel free to copy that email address and reach out to her if you have any other specific questions regarding the task. Okay. If you've already taken the GED, again, you passed any parts, we can help you apply the GED subtest towards receiving your TASK HSC diploma. If you've saved any of your old records for GED, if you've saved what's called a transcript, that's the paper, the report that you get after taking the old GED. You get a report from the state. If you have that information, that's probably the easiest way that we can help you. If not, we have to reach out to New York State and send out some paperwork. It can be done. It does take a little time, so just ask that you be patient, especially in this time where there are a lot of people who are trying to tackle their high school diplomas to get them out of the way. Again, Regents exams, if you pass any of the core subjects when you attended high school with a score of 65 or higher, then those scores will be applied towards your task. I was a guidance counselor at a high school for a number of years, and there was a period of time where New York State offered what was called a variance. And during those years, students were allowed to pass Regents exams or at least a certain amount of Regents exams with a score of 55 or higher. Unfortunately, those scores with 55, well, anything under 65, will not be honored, even if you were in high school during the years of the variance. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the waivers. We just have to make very clear from the very beginning that the waiver only applies to the students who are consistently attending classes. It has happened in past that students have applied for classes but never reported. And in a case like that, in good faith, we cannot honor that. The reason being is that your teacher needs to report to New York State and needs to confirm that you've mastered the material. So the waiver applies if you have already passed 3 or 4 subjects on the task or the GED. If you only have 1 or 2 more sections to go, you have to complete the necessary academic work in class and you have to remain in class until the waiver is granted. So if you're not entirely sure that the waiver is granted, the safe thing to do is to remain in class. Please don't stop reporting to class, hoping that New York State will get back to you, because that strategy may backfire. And then at that point, the clock has kind of been reset and you have to start all over again. Okay, credit for passing Regents exams. We've covered this already, but we'll go over it one more time. Passing scores from Regents exams taken in high school may be substituted for a corresponding task subject. The Regents ELA exam may be used in place of both the reading and the writing task subjects. So that's good to know. If you've already passed the English Regents exam, that's potentially 2 sections of the task that you can knock out of the park. But again, you must have passed those tests with a score of 65 or higher. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Google Classroom. Attendance is important, whether you are attending virtually or live. So if you're live, you got to make sure you sign in your attendance every day. If you are participating virtually, you have to fill out your attendance every day on Google Classroom. Otherwise, you do not get your credit for attendance. And this is especially problematic for students who are for students who are trying to go for their high school equivalent. Again, attendance, very important, regardless of what class you are enrolled in, whether that's task, whether that's certified nurse's assistant. If you're in a certified nurse's assistant program, we have to go by hours. It's happened in the past that students thought that perhaps if they just kept up with the work at home, that should be sufficient, but it isn't. Unfortunately, hours do count. Similar for students who are here for English as a second language. If you can't come to class and you're doing the work at home, that's great. But if you need a certain amount of hours, you have to be here. This is also a point that I wanted to stress for those of you who may be participating in this program and you need proof of attendance, be it for HRA or for a job or whatever the case might be. If you are not physically present in the building and you're doing the work at home, we cannot vouch for you. So cannot stress it enough. If you're enrolled in the class, be it virtual or live, please make sure that you are participating. Okay, there's also what's called a work time record, and this applies more towards the students who are participating virtually. It's a document that you have to give in order for the work you can. Let's try that one more time. The purpose of this document is to give you credit for the work that you complete. So any task that you are completing, be it classwork, homework, whatever the case might be, please make sure that you are filling out this paperwork regularly. Again, especially important for those of you who may be participating in a program where they need some sort of proof that you are participating regularly. This is the record that the teacher will go to. So please make sure that you are filling this out. Let's talk a little bit about dress code, whether you are here in the building or participating virtually. Recommended dress code, clothing that is appropriate for the virtual classroom or for the live classroom. Polo shirts, button-down shirts, blouses, t-shirts, sweatshirts, sleeveless dresses, or shirts with straps no less than 3 inches wide. Okay? If you are participating virtually, you have the option to keep your camera off, and we certainly recommend that if you're not wearing anything that is up to code with the student dress code. If you're here in the building, don't have that option. Okay, again, we went over this information in the previous slide. You have to make sure that you are dressed appropriately. Some more specifics, clothing items that are not allowed: tank tops, halter tops, spaghetti strap tops, shirts or blouses expressing an area above the waist, shorts or skirts that can be considered revealing or distracting. That is more applicable to students who are here in the building, or any item of clothing with inappropriate writing, advertising drugs, alcohol, etc. Okay, so Mid-Manhattan Adult Learning Center offers many workshops and podcasts to meet the needs of our students. We've had quite a few interesting podcasts over the course of the last couple of months. We had one podcast where Mr. Nipper talked about resumes and about applying for jobs. Black History Month, we had a special guest, Israel Joseph of the Bad Brains. Just last week, we had a chef from Cornell University do a live cooking demo with a student and a staff member. Soon, on April 15th, we're going to have a rep from NYPD talking about safety. So the way that we get these podcasts going is by basically surveying students, and we'd like to know what you want to see, what you feel would be most helpful. So you can always email us, you can speak to your teacher, you can speak to your case manager. If there's a certain topic that you want to see on a podcast, you also have the option to appear on a podcast if you like, um, depending on the topic. All right, so at this point, if there are any questions, you can type them in the chat box. If you are live here in the building and you have a question, you can tap on the door to room 102 and give your questions to either Mr. Del Rosario or Ms. Haska, and we'll discuss questions live on the feed. Taking a look here, it looks like all this information is pretty straightforward. Okay. A couple things I want to make clear. If you were taking a class remotely and you want to switch to live, and you're still working remotely from home, please make sure that you let your teacher know. And just the opposite is true. If you were in what's called the blended class, and that class is now live in the building and you want to remain remote, please let your teacher or a case manager know so that we can get the transfer done. Okay, I'm going to put my email address here on the screen, towards the bottom right there, crosas@schools.nyc.gov. If you have any questions, you can always email me there. But again, there is still time to make that switch if you want to. Okay? Let me see here. Do we give dialysis course? That is a question by Patricia Patty. And the answer is no. We actually at one point had medical billing. We also had PCT. I'm sorry, that phone is awfully loud. I just have to wait for that thing to stop ringing. So. Thank you. We had PCT and we have phlebotomy. Unfortunately, those classes are not offered anymore. Medical billing will resume once we go back to brick and mortar full time. That class is typically offered at Co-op Tech. And while we're on the topic of Co-op Tech, some courses that we offer at Co-op Tech. For those of you who don't know, Co-op Tech is a satellite site and it is on East 96th Street and First Avenue. Classes that we offer in that program. And what I should probably do is I should type them out so that you'll see. Classes offered at Co-op Tech. So there is culinary arts. There's welding. There's auto repair. There's electrical installation. There is A+ computer repair. There is web design. There is solar electric. There is OSHA 30. Medical billing. Okay, These are classes that are offered at Co-op Tech. Co-op Tech at the moment is not offering classes for adults. Those classes are suspended until further notice. But once we resume brick and mortar full time, these are classes that you are able to take. Those classes are only offered at night. Typically, the schedule is Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 4:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. This is usually the part where I have students asking me, well, can I register now so that once the classes resume, I have my place set, and unfortunately we can't. But we will be keeping you posted. We will be letting the teachers know so that the teachers can make announcements. Attendance, again, is very important. So in good faith, you have to make sure that if you're here for a GED class or for an English as a second language class or nursing or Microsoft or whatever, and you want to participate in a class over at Co-op Tech, you have to make sure that your attendance is strong. Reason being is that Co-op Tech is a satellite site. So we are basically in good faith telling the teachers, these are students that would be good for your class. If you don't have strong attendance, we cannot put you in those classes. In addition to that, with a class like welding, where you need a certain amount of hours of practice, you are not going to get certified as a welder or as a mechanic or as a chef if you are not participating in the class and you're doing the hours live, even if you're doing the work at home. Okay. The other thing is that with a lot of these classes, you really can't do the work at home because unless you have a welding set at home or a garage where you can work on cars, it's just not applicable. Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. So Patricia asked if we could send lists of the classes. I still have that up on the screen. Okay. Let's see if there's any other questions in the chat. I don't think so. Okay. For those of you who are taking English as a second language, specifically if you are Spanish speaking, you may or may not know that you are able to take the high school equivalency classes in Spanish. Now, usually this is the part where students will ask, well, can I take two classes? Can I take English as a second language and can I take high school equivalency at the same time? So it's basically taking two classes. Unfortunately, the way the funding works right now, you can't. You would have to choose one or the other. Now, what you could do potentially, which some students are doing, is they are participating in the high school equivalency classes in Spanish. And once they complete their diploma, then they'll come back to do English as a second language. That is absolutely allowed, not a problem. The choice is yours as to what order you want to take it in. If you want to ask my advice, what I would do, I would probably opt to do high school equivalency first, only because that diploma might open other doors in terms of employment. And then you can go back to English as a second language if you want. See if there's any other classes. I'm sorry, any other questions? Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the upcoming podcast, which will be on April 15th. So on April 15th, if you are available, we are going to be having a podcast, and that will be a rep from, it's actually not from the NYPD. He is from, I just want to make sure I have all this information correct, so I'm putting it up on the screen here. Let's see. Okay, here we are. So I'll put this up on the screen so that you can see it. Mm-hmm. Okay. Over here. There we go. All right. So on April 15th, our next podcast is Know Your Rights with the NYPD. And our guest that day will be Timothy Harrell of the Civilian Complaint Review Board. This is especially important for those of you who may have been stopped by police officers. without probable cause. If this is a common occurrence in your neighborhood, then this is definitely something that you would like to see. There was actually a documentary on this on Netflix just recently, and the name of it escapes me, but I'm pretty sure if you did a web search um, about the Civilian Complaint Review Board, you'll find the name of the film. It is available on Netflix and I believe on Amazon Prime if you have Amazon Prime. So let's see. I think we've pretty much covered everything. Let me just double check, see if we're missing anything. Miss Haska? Sula, are you back there? I was going to see if she had anything to say about the April 15th podcast, but she's not available for me. Okay, if that's it, then we can start wrapping this up. Those of you who are still live in the building, if you have a class that goes on till 2:30, you can now return to your classrooms. Those of you who are done for the day, you're free to go home. And those of you who are here virtually, you can continue doing what it is that you do. No, there was another question. Someone asked if I can email the list of classes over a co-op tech. I will do that momentarily. But just remember, classes at co-op tech are suspended until further notice. We will keep you posted when those are up and running again. Okay, so I think that's about it for now. Thank you for joining us today. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always email me. You can always let your teacher know. And basically, that will be it. Okay, so thank you again for joining us, and have a good spring break, which is coming up. We are on spring break from the end of the school day on Friday all the way up until April 5th. So on April 5th is when we are returning to the building. That's about it for now, and thank you for joining us.